It's Mindset Cafe, we all got that mindset. Gotta stay focused, never settle for less. It's all in your head, how you think you manifest. So get ready to rise, cause we about to be the best. Gotta switch it up, gotta break the old habits. Get your mind right, turn your dreams into habits. No negative vibes, only positive thoughts.
What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Mindset Cafe podcast. It's your boy, Devan Gonzalez. And today I wanted to break down something that I've kind of noticed recently. And I think that we all do it or have done it, at some point. And as the year ends and we're about to get into New Year's resolutions, I think this is an important part to realize that you're not the old version of you and you are a newer version of you, and you can always be a newer version. But I want you to realize that life is going to hit you with things that you didn't ask for at times that are not inconvenient, times that are not perfect, right? And those moments sting, and they're supposed to. They're the unexpected, they're the uncontrollable. That's life. The second part of that, though, is that's not real suffering. I mean, yes, there is suffering in that, but I think a lot of times with what we're going to talk about today, there's a second part to it, and that's where truly one suffers. And I want to give you some tools, tips, and tricks to kind of get over that and reevaluate it and reshift it in your mindset. And I think the best way to do that is by breaking down where this whole thought process came from, which was an ancient teaching of the second arrow, from Buddha to one of his students. And so we can break it down into practical steps, and I'll kind of explain the story in a second. And then, hopefully you guys get to take and extract a lesson from it. And the story of the second arrow, essentially, the purpose of it is that I think a lot of times we are the second arrow, right? And so the story goes, Buddha was trying to teach a lesson to one of his students, and he said, if I shoot you with an arrow, does it hurt? And the student responded, well, yeah, it's going to hurt. That would suck a little bit if you shot me with an arrow. And so he says, okay, the first arrow would hurt. And you can't avoid that first arrow. He said, the second arrow, if I shot you in the same spot after the first arrow, would that hurt? And he said, yes. He said, the first arrow is life, right? So the first arrow it's going to hurt. Now, the second arrow, though, is you. And that's your suffering, right? The first arrow is basically a fixed cost. It is what is going to happen is inevitable. And we're going to have our downsides. We're going to have our bad days. We're going to have our bad moments, our bad seasons. But you only have to suffer once. And that's where that second arrow comes in, is realizing that the first arrow being life, which you didn't ask for, which could be, failure. It could be embarrassment. It can be rejection. It could be loss. It hurts, and that's unavoidable. But that second arrow, which is you, that's the replay. That's the overthinking. That's the shame. That's the version where you beat yourself up for days, weeks, months, maybe even years. And while you can't dodge that first arrow, you can stop the second arrow from even being fired, even being shot. And so I want, by the end of this, for you to make it a rule that you're only going to suffer once. I want your mindset to be, I'm not going to relive this moment. I'm not going to let it, play in a loop in my head. I'm not going to judge the version of me who didn't know what I didn't know, and I didn't know any better, right? That's why this happened. Or kind of letting the lesson stay in a sense and letting it, be a part of you. I want you to be able to let that self-attack essentially go. I want you to think of it as you want memory dividends. Like if you have stocks, right, you get paid dividends on your stocks. I don't want it to be where you have these memory liabilities and they're only harming you or they're only a risk to you. So breaking that down, the first arrow, things happen, and they happen in ways and times that are probably the worst timing, and are, you're not predicting it. It's, everything's already, tough. You're already going through the struggles, and then life hits you with another curveball. And I believe, honestly, that's when they say you're forged by the fire, that is the fire. That is you getting the opportunity to grow, to become the next version of you. Without that struggle, without those first arrows, you wouldn't adapt and learn new skills. You wouldn't grow to become who you are today. Think about, any struggle that you've overcome, and looking back on it, it doesn't seem so bad because you know how to overcome it. So if that same thing happened again, you would know essentially what to do to fix the problem faster, or even avoid the problem as you see it coming. Realizing that there is still suffering in the first arrow, it still does sting when things happen when they're not anticipated. That's being human, right? I'm not saying that you can't suffer, you can't, feel the pain. Like, that's not weakness. It's just hurt, right? It's just stress. It's just those things. But, or actually, I'll give you an example. Let's say you're trying to get a job promotion, and then all of a sudden the promotion doesn't go your way. That's the first arrow. Like, you don't have any control over if your boss gives you the promotion or not. That's uncontrollable. Let's say if you're dating, right, you send a text and all of a sudden, or a message, and then you get ghosted. Again, unavoidable. So I want you to realize that you can't mindset your way out of reality. The first arrow is going to hurt. It's going to suck. It's going to sting. And that's a part of life. That's okay. That's the fixed cost of life. I like to kind of rephrase back to, a 50 Cent song. It's like, their sunshine wouldn't be so great if there wasn't rain, right? You can't appreciate something if there's not the polar opposite. So you wouldn't feel the success, you wouldn't feel the pride, if you wouldn't feel the achievement if there wasn't the failures, if there wasn't the struggle, if there wasn't the rejections, right? So you have to realize that the cost of feeling those moments that are so valuable, well, you have to pay the toll at some point of the polar opposite. But that second arrow, the self-inflicted, essentially, suffering, that's when you're letting that mental replay happen. That's when you're overthinking, I didn't get the promotion. Why didn't I get the promotion? And you're living in this state of just a loop of just replaying the same thing. It happened. It went away. There's nothing you could do about it, right? But you just thinking about it doesn't do you any good. And now you're just suffering and overthinking, and it starts to affect your confidence. It starts to affect other aspects of you to allow you to move the needle forward. And your fear of being judged, or your fear of rejection because of the past event, that's what, suffering in the sense of like personal growth and professional growth really is. You have to realize that the first arrow hits once, but that second arrow hits 1,000 times, and you're the one pulling the bow back and shooting it. The event happened one time. You got denied, you got ghosted, you got whatever. That happened one time. But you replaying it in your mind and thinking about it is happening on a loop, time after time after time after time. And you're feeling that same wave of emotions and same self-doubt and same, whatever it may be for you, for whatever reason it may, or whatever feelings or emotions that have happened when it actually happened, you're replaying that. And so with that, you have to realize that there's mental liabilities and or memory liabilities and memory dividends. Just like, you have assets and you have liabilities, assets being good things, that are, increasing value, are not a risk to you or your finances. Well, memory, same thing. You have things that are liabilities that are at a risk to you that you don't need to have, essentially. You want things that are going to replay and pay dividends and keep you growing in the way that you're supposed to be growing. So the memory liabilities, for example, like things that you're replaying that drain your confidence, drain your energy, and even your self-trust potentially of you accomplishing what you set out to accomplish. But the memory dividends, in another sense, is almost one of like my core values, I would say, is a memory dividend style aspect. Hopefully this makes it make sense. But you extract the lesson in that you can benefit from forever. So something didn't go well. Well, why didn't it go well? What could I have done better? And I'm going to do that next time. You learn the lesson and now you are improved. You're starting to grow into a new version of you. And so that is a dividend of having the memory liabilities or dividends. So realizing that you have the option, and you have the option as of right now, as of listening to this, that you can choose to only suffer once, right? You don't have control of that first arrow, so you're gonna end up suffering. But you can refuse to shoot the second arrow, and maybe the second arrow does get shot. You have a choice at some point to stop shooting the arrow and stop reliving and relooping that whole train of events that's happening. So I want you to make it a rule, a self-rule essentially, that I'm not going to relive this moment on a loop. I'm not going to judge the version of me who didn't know better, that didn't know how to do that, or didn't know the necessary things that now I do know, because that was a different version of me. Feel it fully once, right? Learn from it and then let it go. But to give you a practical tool that you can actually implement this with, here's how you catch the second arrow almost in real time. It might be the second arrow, might be the 20th arrow, but it gets better as you practice this, right? So the first time it might be the 22nd arrow, and then all of a sudden it's the 12th arrow, and then it's the second arrow, right? It gets better, just like any skill, anything that you do in life. Working out's not super easy the first time, but you keep working out, you get stronger, so forth. This memory skill also works the same. So step one, you have to name it, right? The second arrow has to have a label on it, has to have a meaning to it, has to have a essentially title. The second part is to pause the movie. Notice that you're replaying it, you're not reliving it. So I'll say that again. I want you to pause the movie that's playing on in your head, because you're replaying it, and you need to know that you're not reliving it. It's not happening right now. It already happened. The next part is, once you realize that and you can stop that memory loop, is ask, is this helping me or is it hurting me again? Is this making me feel that wave of emotions again? Is this starting to make me doubt myself? And then lastly, when you do answer that, don't just give a surface level answer, right? Understand why it's making you feel like that. Extract the lesson. You don't need to extend the sentence that you're putting on yourself, almost like jail time. You extract the lesson. You don't extend your sentence for whatever happened that you had no control over, and realize and think about, what would you do differently? What would you do next time? What's a simple process that if that happened, I would do? How would I counteract this? For example, let's say you missed a deadline. Next time, instead of being, you missed a deadline, whatever happens, And then all of a sudden you're embarrassed, you're, X, Y, and Z. Realize it, stop the loop, and be like, okay, next time I'm going to maybe set a midweek checkpoint, a calendar notification on my phone. I'm going to make sure that I communicate earlier if I'm running late. There's certain things that you can do to make sure that so that you won't miss the deadline, or that you essentially, even if you are going to miss a deadline, how would you improve the, missing it? Communicate with the person that you're going to be running a day late on the project. Communicate that you're, running a little bit late to the meeting. And then another part I want you to realize is that that is the old you, right? That is a different version of you. That was a version of you that whatever the first arrow had hit, didn't know the first arrow was coming, didn't know that the first arrow was even there or what it was. But that's not the version of you now. Now you know that first arrow. Now you know what happens. Now you know the outcome, the feelings, the whatever. And so you have to have some compassion for that version of you and not put so much blame on yourself or be so hard on yourself, because that does nothing for you moving forward. It has a ripple effect. I know you've heard me say that multiple times, the ripple effect, but the ripple effect is that second arrow, and it could be positive, it could be negative, right? You basically not shooting the second arrow has a positive ripple effect. You shooting the second arrow and the 22nd arrow and the 200th arrow, that has a negative ripple effect, right? Let's say, for example, your confidence. You're beating yourself up is going to be taking more time and more energy away from what you need to do to move the needle forward. And so now you're not going to be as confident the next time you need to do that thing, right? Or send the text, or, ask a girl out or a guy out. Let's say, for example, actually, I want you to realize that, the people who win long-term aren't the ones who never get hit by that first arrow. But that's honestly something for you to realize, that sometimes we see people succeeding or doing better than us, and we think we're the only ones being shot with those first arrows. And that's just not the case. The ones that are succeeding long-term, or just seems like they're always winning, they're the ones that are not shooting the second arrow, and they're not stabbing themselves afterwards when they get shot with the first arrow. They're not reliving it, replaying it in their mind. So I just want you to take, find a little takeaway is life's going to hit you, right? Life's going to shoot that first arrow. That's honestly, I can probably guarantee that. At some point or another, if you haven't been hit by a curveball, probably going to hit by a curveball. But that doesn't mean you don't step back up to the plate. That doesn't mean that just because you got hit by the first arrow, there's going to be a second arrow of the same thing. The second arrow is you. It's your choice. Shoot it, don't shoot it is on you. That's controllable. So take the lesson, drop the second arrow, drop the weapon, and walk forward. Walk forward lighter, walk forward more confident. You now got to experience it and be grateful that you experienced it, because now you have a lesson and you have something else that other people don't have. Right? One of the other sayings that, I realized this with business, and it was like a self-reflective thought of common sense is only common to the person that knows it. Well, now you experiencing that second arrow, if it gets shot again, it's common sense on what to do. But someone else that hasn't been hit by that first arrow doesn't have that common sense. So hopefully this helped. I wanted to kind of take a little bit of a different approach, because I know that life is hard sometimes, right? And I just want you to know that whatever you're going through, other people are going through it too, or have gone through it. So there's no point in you beating yourself up over it, because that doesn't do anything for you moving forward. You have to start believing yourself, realize that you're replaying something in your head that was of a different version of yourself, and move forward. You got this. Just like I talked about a couple episodes ago, sometimes it's okay to borrow the confidence and the belief others are instilling in you, because they may see something that you're not seeing within yourself. But the same thing for this. Something happens to you, you get shot with that first arrow, and other people are telling you it's okay and giving you almost self-confidence boosters. Realize that is probably genuine. They're not just saying it to make you feel better. Realize that, and then take it in, and you need to stop the replay and move forward. But if you guys ever need me, I'm here for you guys. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. If you guys need anything, send me a DM. But otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.
No negative vibes, only positive thoughts. Cause in the game of life, mindset calls the shots.